My name is Paul. I've been the Group CEO of Certis since 2004. I joined just about the time when the organization, which used to be part of a government department, was being spun off as a company. And so I brought the company from where it was then through its transition to the present time. The revenue at that time was about 200 million Singapore dollars. Today, we are a 1.5 billion Singapore dollar company. I'll say today we are a very diversified company, whereas in the past we only do armed security. Today we provide armed, we provide unarmed security, we do facility management, we provide IT and other security technology solutions. This whole idea of technology and operations coming together to create new outcomes is something that is very much embedded within our DNA. In those early days, we coined this term M-Cube. Like man, machine, and method. In 2012, that was when we realized that we got to be smarter in the way we apply technology. And then we moved towards not only creating better outcomes for customers, but trying to reduce costs for customers. So at the time, we're talking about business process re-engineering and operation, something we call BPRO. And then we also realized that the same platforms and solutions that we deployed to run security very well can also be used for facility management. And that's when we started having conversations with our customers. And so that's when we embark on the next phase of our growth or diversification. Many companies struggle trying to make sense of the ever-increasing spend on IT. The main reason is because it is hard to quantify the outcomes of IT to the business outcomes. So our Security Plus enables our customers to have that line of sight between the investment in technology and the outcomes. Because now with digitalization, you have access to data. And with data, you can better understand the operation, and then you can make further improvements. Driving productivity improvements will always be, our main value proposition to our customers.
My name is Fuji Fu. I'm the Chief Digital Officer of Certis. My role is actually to drive business growth through digitalization and to support the execution of the business strategies through the use of emerging technologies as well as new competencies. As an organization, we are transforming such that we want to deliver more value to the customers. We started this journey by moving on to a platform play. With a platform, it allows us to scale. It allows us to literally put multiple functions into a single platform such that we can orchestrate across all the different silos of operations. Our customers' landscape has changed as well, and which is where from a platform, we have evolved into products like, for example, AI as a service, data as a service, for example, and all these have been built based on what we have data that is unique to us, and with that, our customers, for example, will be able to benefit from all these services that they can subscribe. At the end of the day, buying a technology doesn't mean that we have the competency. It is really the case whereby we have to literally internalize the technology, make it into part of our SOP. Only then, in fact, that will become a competency. I think that is something that we are very, very mindful that, and I think that's the part that literally differentiates us from our competitors like the tech companies or even the manpower companies.
I'm the Senior Vice President, and concurrently I also look after the entity called Certis Land Security. Because of that deep experience in operations and the ability to use technology, we are able to make that what we call OpStack, the operation technology, actually work. Because really buying a technology equipment in the market is really easy. I mean, just buy a CCTV, you can even buy a robot, right? But how to make that robot able to integrate and give you that deep insight of how it should be actually operating in the environment. We got a robot called Peter that we featured in Jewel. In the beginning, Peter was run by engineers. right, from our headquarters that does all the programming and stuff like that, with the ground officers to give their input during a design thinking workshop that how do you think that your value add? One of the security executive was just given a 2-3 hours kind of like a training on how to operate Peter. And next day, the Jewel team ran Peter. I think it's something that so far Certis, I'm really very proud of it, that Certis has kind of done it right.
As an alumni to SMU, I took the EMBA course, I think about 5 years ago, right? One of the key things that I actually got as a takeaway from my lessons is, especially when it comes to business collaboration, there was a saying that if you want to walk further, you may want to go in groups. And that's exactly what we believe in. So over in Certis, in fact, we strongly believe in collaboration, especially strategic collaboration, in the sense whereby there's never a situation whereby we can do everything ourselves. We really need to identify what is unique to us, what is core to us, what is something that we want to hold tight to ourselves, and what is something that we can actually work with really domain experts, for example, in their respective field. When we're talking about domain experts, we're not limiting to just partners in terms of IT or technology provider. It could also be customers as well. And the interesting thing is that when a customer starts to really look into, from a surveillance and a social distancing ambassador to a concierge, and they start asking, hey, actually, Certis, can you actually incorporate a 3-in-1? Why? Because the robots has the cleaning capability. So when they are not doing concierge, can they clean the floor as well? Yeah, very interesting. So I was like, wow. And that's the kind of core innovations that we're talking about here, right?
New things come up all the time. So first, we need to stay abreast. Secondly is that the fields are so diverse. It's impossible for us to try to be good at everything. So the impetus to really partner becomes even more burning, because you need to be fast, and there's so much, and you just can't come to grips with everything yourself directly. I believe that technology will become more pervasive in every company. It's about adopting these technologies and then empowering the workforce so that they become, they become more productive, it becomes more cost effective for customers, and produce happier outcomes for everybody. We're quite fortunate that many of our customers today see us as more strategic partner than just a vendor. So that's something that I think we have proven our value to them over the years. And especially during this past year of COVID, I would say that in many aspects we're bent over backwards to support them. Many of them appreciate that. And I think we're going to continue to cultivate more of such customers. If you're not keeping pace and innovating and even just staying abreast with the developments and know what you can apply and how you can apply it to the business, to what we do, you are behind the curve. Making sure that you have a culture that allows people to work together, or encourages people to work together, and reduce the tensions, and having those conversations with board and shareholders on the funding for the investment. I guess that the third part is, obviously, to do that well, you need to be able to see fairly clearly where that technology is heading. If you can't see it and not able to understand what it means to you, then you're going to be lost. We have at the same time also done a lot to improve our own internal processes. First, we can be an attractive employer because we do things in the way that people nowadays are used to doing, right? Instant gratification. At the touch of a button, you can order stuff. So we have just finished, right, doing a lot of all these internal systems so that you can make a claim, we can reimburse you in 30 minutes. So we bring all these, the values, the team working, the quality mindset, and the leadership training all together in one huge department that does nothing but just this. Because you recognize a lot of the cultures and all this is also very much affected by the leaders. And so we invest quite a lot of time educating and making sure that leaders exhibit the right values. One of the key framework or idea that we have relating to technology and innovation is that, we let 1,000 flowers bloom. And so the markets are encouraged, they are strongly encouraged to forge their own solutions, but within a framework that we have created that allow the different parts to be able to interconnect. That framework is important because we want to be able to leverage off the innovation from each market without having to reinvent the wheel. And we strongly encourage that. I would say that the one thing I am particularly proud of is my team that has now fully come to understand what Security Plus means and be able to put together and move with in a single purpose-minded way to drive these outcomes. I think that's probably the one biggest thing that I would say makes everything happen. Well, I guess there's always room for improvement. I mean, there's probably an overused word, continuous improvement. But the key thing is the competition is not going to sit still. They're going to catch up. So as a CEO, one of the things you got to consider is what's next, right? How to stay ahead of the chasing pack. And therefore, that also requires you to be able to look at the technology horizon. What is emerging, what's going to be the next bound, and to prepare for it. And then, of course, as I always say, it's not about the technology, it was how the technology is applied to the operations or to the business. And so that will be an ongoing process.